Imagine turning passion into powerful leadership on and off the field. At FSU, you can earn a 100% online master's or graduate certificate in athletic coaching. Designed by coaches, for coaches, no matter your experience or sport. FSU Center for Athletic Coaching, educating today's coaches to lead tomorrow's athletes.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Coach Talk. My name is Tim Baghurst, and today's guest is Adam Gary. He is the head women's coach of golf at Western Kentucky University. Adam, always a pleasure to have on coaches to talk about their experiences. Can you give us a little bit of your background, how you got into coaching in the first place, and how you ended up where you are now?
Yeah, so it's kind of a unique story, I guess. I started out playing professionally after college, played professionally for 8 years and wasn't having any luck making a lot of money, and had my first child. So it was a little bit harder to travel and do some of those things. So I joined the PGA, started teaching. I was the director of instruction down at Kenny Perry's course here in Kentucky. I was working through that PGA books, and then the last section, level 3, you have to apply for a job you don't currently have. So it's like, well, if I wasn't an instructor, I think coaching would be something I'd be interested in doing. So I filled out the homework assignment, turned it in, didn't really think anything of it. And then about a month later, the job opened up here in town. So I'm from Bowling Green, actually. So this is home to me. But so the job opened up. I interviewed. I had everything put together. I didn't really think that I would get the job because I didn't have any experience. But 13 years later, here we are. So I don't know that many D1 schools would hire coaches without experience now, but it was just kind of the right place at the right time, and it's been a fun ride.
I want to go back to you playing as a professional, because most people would assume you're playing professional golf, you're making bank. That's a little surprising to say you're struggling to make ends meet.
Yeah, well, and I never got my tour card, so I wasn't on the PGA Tour, so it was really more the mini tour life, and it was just good enough to where I'd make the cuts, but I wasn't really in the top 5. So the last year that I played, I made 9 out of my 12 cuts and lost money on the year. So I was starting to figure out pretty quickly that it might not be a great long-term plan, but I enjoyed it. And I think a lot of those things that I learned and the people I met, the experiences are things that help me with the team now, and hopefully I can pass on some of that wisdom to them to where they don't make the same mistakes that I did.
You're in women's golf. Why was it? Because that job was open, or did you have a passion for coaching women?
No, it was that job was open. I liked all things golf, and it didn't really matter to me where or who or how. It's the same thing on the lesson tee. As long as someone's wanting to get better, I'm all for it. So I was just wanting to do something in golf, and this was the opportunity that opened up, and it's been a fun ride.
And just while everybody's watching live, if you have a question for Adam, just put it in your chat box, comment section, wherever you're watching from. What have you noticed, or have you noticed any differences between coaching women and coaching men? Are there certain things that you have to be more thoughtful about? Are there certain things that maybe they expect from you that men wouldn't? How have you had to navigate that?
Yeah, I think that's been that's been part of the learning curve for me, for sure. First off, when I was hired, all of my contacts were on the men's side, so I didn't really know many women's coaches. So scheduling was kind of tough, and kind of building those relationships. But as far as the actual players and working with the players, I think culture is probably a little bit more important on the women's side. I've just kind of found that if the team it has drama and not getting along, they won't really play well on the course, to where the guys can kind of put it past them, maybe go play and not really get along, I guess you could say, as much, and still perform. So maybe how you give feedback, a lot of it might not be as technical. It's really kind of player dependent, but yeah, it's definitely been a pretty sharp learning curve for me.
You mentioned culture, which is probably one of the hot topics for any coach who is coaching. I need that culture that generates success and builds teams and et cetera. Do you have any specific maybe experiences or recommendations or actions that you take that support you building a culture that you want?
Yeah, one of the things that we don't have any international players on our team. Not that teams with international players can't get along. I know there's lots of teams that do it well, but for me, kind of recruiting more regionally, a lot of the girls know each other before they get to school, so they kind of have similar backgrounds. And with social media now, the golf is really a small world. So even if they aren't close friends, they'll have a friend of a friend or follow each other on social media or played in some of the same tournaments. So I think that takes some of the intimidation away from like joining the team and showing up on campus your freshman year. But yeah, I do think that getting the right mix of players is kind of an art, and you have to kind of forecast that out. And I kind of lean on my players to help me recruit, and they know a lot more about the other players than I do, and even the parents as well. So the recruiting window is so small now when you can start talking June 15th, and then commitments are already happening in the 28 class, and a lot of the decisions will be made and finished by December. So it's a very short window to get to know someone. So I like being able to lean on the instructors that I know from the PGA and from my playing background, and then also the players on our team to kind of get advice on who they feel like would be a good fit. And that doesn't work all the time, but that's a good place to start, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned recruiting out to 2028. And so my brain started thinking, well, how old are they now? And how much better or worse might they get before they actually show up on campus? Have you had experiences where athletes have changed their mind and gone somewhere else? And how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I know that does happen. We haven't had anyone change their mind and go anywhere else, but I do think you run the risk as a junior. At 16, you commit, and a lot of times you have to be careful that that's not the only goal, is just to get a scholarship and to go play Division I golf. I think you need to find someone that loves golf and really wants to improve, because I've seen it in the past where once you commit, maybe the tournament schedule shrinks down. You don't play in as many tournaments as you were trying to get noticed and trying to get recruited. So I do think that is the risk you take, I guess, with the early commitments that are happening right now. Junior year going into their junior year, but it could go both ways too, because I've had some players that maybe weren't ranked as high. And then one of the players that just graduated, Sydney, on our team last year, she was 27th in her class by the time, she arrived on campus her freshman year. So it could go both ways, to where they get a lot better and want to continue to improve, or maybe they sigh of relief and they made their parents happy that they got a D1 spot and a scholarship, and maybe the motivation, isn't there, or maybe the love of playing in tournaments and wanting to continue to get better isn't quite, there. But yeah, it's very individual with the player for sure.
We were chatting just before we started about how NIL, transfer portal, two really different things, but both almost happening simultaneously in college sports are occurring. What is your experience of NIL in particular in the recognition that now athletes aren't going, well, that's a nice offer. They're going, that's a nice offer, but what else are you giving me? Have you had that experience? How do you recruit when other colleges are recruiting around you that may be able to add a financial incentive above what you can?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it now, and the landscape is changing daily. It seems like, there were a few players in the portal that I was going after, trying to add one more player for this year, and that was part of the conversation. That's almost like a full ride isn't enough anymore, and you have to put money on top of it. But that's where some schools can and some schools can't. So in the past, I felt like that was one of our strengths by having a strong culture and having good facilities and offering a good tournament schedule and an opportunity to play in an NCAA regional like we've been in the last couple of years. So, those things in the past that used to be valued, and obviously, adding our assistant coach, Emma Talley, from a player development standpoint, who played on the LPGA tour and all of these things, it seems like it does kind of come down to the money just a little bit, even if we feel like we check off the boxes for what they might be looking for or asking. At the end of the day, I think it's hard to blame them. I mean, I wasn't in that position at 20 years old, having to decide, whether to go somewhere. And I hardly blame the kids if cash is being offered, then, I probably would have taken it too. So it's a slippery slope with it, because I do feel like, the players should get paid if their, name and image and likeness, that's what NIL is. If it's being used to promote things and to sell tickets, and I think part of it was even using their names on video games and things for football and basketball. So I do feel like that they should be compensated for that, but it's just, man, it's gotten so far out in right field with it now that it's definitely part of the conversations. I mean, you can even see what's happened at Eastern Michigan, when they hired Josh Brewer from Georgia and had some money donated to the program, and now they're able to pay some of their players. They went instantly from 200th in the country to making it all the way to match play in the Final Four in the NCAA tournament this year. So it's going to be a thing going forward. You definitely will be able to tell some of the programs that have the money and not. But that's where, as a coach, you have to keep being creative and finding ways to offer value, even if you maybe don't have huge amounts of cash to offer. It's at the end of the day, it's still just finding the right players that have similar goals and want to be a part of the program that you have and the things that you have to offer.
Mm. I'm guessing then that fundraising is now a big part of your role.
Yeah, well, and it's always been a big part of my role. That's part of the mid-majors. Obviously we're trying to keep up and keep our tournament schedule, competitive and our gear. But I feel like we've been able to do a pretty good job, because we've had some transfers in the past. We've had one on the team now from University of Georgia. We've had one from Mississippi State. So we've had some players that have had that big conference, like SEC type experience. And they've mentioned to me that, as far as like what we offer gear wise and things, obviously we might not have the tailgating and the football environment that they have, but if you're going to college to play golf, that might not be one of the top things on your priority list. So, but yeah, no, I think, it's always been a part of it, but the fundraising is going to increasingly become more and more important, because that's going to be where it is now with the roster limit at 9 and having to go over and offer more scholarships, even being, fully funded at 6. What used to be fully funded at 6 for the women, probably isn't enough anymore. So I'm going to be fundraising just to meet extra scholarship needs. And so I don't think that's ever going to go away. I mean, the fundraising is always going to be there.
Now, golf is a sport that might be considered, I say this carefully, within the Olympic sports, and it is part of the Olympics. And there's been a lot of conversation over the last, I would say, 2-3 years about Olympic sports in college, in the sense that, well, they're not generating revenue like football. We could argue football doesn't, but some football programs do. And others say, well, football fund the rest of them. And look at these other sports, such as tennis and golf. There's such a financial outlay for the university. Do you ever experience any of that pressure of being one of those sports that isn't making more than it spends, and therefore there's maybe additional pressures?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty fortunate with my administration. I don't really feel any additional pressures. And I think that's a good point. And I guess it depends on how you look at it, because there's maybe only a few schools in the country that are actually turning a profit.
Right.
I mean, if you took away state funding, even at the SEC levels, like I'm sure baseball and softball aren't making a profit. A lot of basketballs aren't making a profit. There again, maybe 10% of the teams are making a profit, but I would say that's probably in the ballpark. So I guess it just depends on what you consider a revenue and a non-revenue sport. I mean, even with golf. So if I host a tournament and I take entry fees, I'm generating revenue. Am I a revenue generating sport? Even though I'm operating, obviously I don't make enough in one tournament to cover all of my expenses for the year, but it just depends on how you look at it. I think it could be considered, but every sport are kind of reliant on those state funds and also foundation enhancement things as well, just to meet the bottom line every year. So, but no, I think it just depends on what you're wanting to offer. I think that's the whole point of athletics, is to give as many people as possible the opportunity to compete and be a part of that. And obviously, I think sometimes that's what drives enrollment for universities and things too. So you could argue that, it all works in harmony with the entire university as a whole.
Now, I say this laughing. Some people may say, well, I want to be an Adam. I want to be a golf coach. I want to be out on the course every day, watching people hit balls, maybe hit a few balls myself, travel around the country, see some nice places. Sounds pretty idyllic. Is that the case?
Yeah, I get that a lot. It's like, oh, you're the golf coach, you must play golf every day. No, I wish. Golf is a small portion of it. A lot of it can be compliance, and I'm in the office right now doing receipts, and some of that is kind of tough because I was on the road and driving 10 hours from Louisiana yesterday, so it's a lot of road time and things as well. But no, don't get me wrong. It's a good gig. I love it, and I think it's something that would be fun to be a part of, and I'm blessed to be where I am for sure.
I'm going to push back because you said a lot of positives, but if that's the case, then I go, well, okay, some road trips. Yeah, I could do that. What are some of the things that really would make somebody go, okay, maybe I don't want to do this? Because again, barring the one or two things you said, it's like, okay, yeah, maybe I could do this. But I know that can't be the case all the time.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, that's every job. I mean, every job has its pros and cons, I guess. I mean, I've missed a lot of my children's sporting events. I've missed a lot of the things that they have going on in their life for travel and recruiting. Obviously, I don't make a huge amount of money at a mid-major. I could obviously make more money doing something else. But I think sometimes it's just finding what you enjoy to do and where you feel like you have some significance and you're making a difference. And that's kind of what I want to be a part of. I try not to focus on too much of it, but yeah, no, it's definitely long hours, and sometimes it's, showing up for recruits and they maybe, aren't as interested, and that part of it is kind of difficult for me. I think I would be a poor salesman because it's tough to put a lot of work in and not see any results. So I think that's kind of part of the struggles and things too. And so, but yeah, it's tough to lose players to other schools or not have them interested and then miss out on things with your family. But it is a pretty good job, though. I can't imagine doing anything else.
I've met some coaches who've talked about, especially during season, the physical, psychological drain of always being on the road, always dealing with challenges, whether it be administrative or interpersonal, whatever it may be between players. And they've told me, there's these times I'm always thinking, every season I get that, why am I doing this? I could go do something else and be way less stressed than I am right now. You've been at one location for 13 years, which for a lot of coaches is pretty rare. What allows you to, I would say, stay there and yet be motivated every year to be better, rather than settling and getting comfortable being where you are and getting a solid season, should I say? How do you stay motivated to, okay, this year is going to be better?
True. I mean, And I think that's been part of the fun. When I was hired, we were not a very good team. We were, I think, 185 in the country, and we've moved up as high as 56. So we've been kind of right on the bubble as being an automatic bid for regionals. So to kind of see that progression, and it's kind of satisfying. I don't know. It's just the competitive side of me. I want to excel and to do better and keep improving, and also kind of being in my hometown. I mean, this is where my parents went to school. And so kind of having some of those ties makes it a little bit sweeter to see the turnaround, because, we were one of the original schools that had women's golf. We started women's golf in the mid 70s. So we've had, I think it was 76. So it's almost, I think 50 years was this year that we've had women's golf. And we just won our first conference championship year before last. So, we've not had a lot of success. So to finally kind of see the program turn the corner a little bit, and there's something satisfying with competing with some of the bigger schools when we're, way below them budget wise. So we, kind of have that saying is just get a lot out of a little, and trying to do the most of what we have. And so, and I guess to answer the other part of your question is kind of how to stay here. And it's gratefulness. I mean, it's always easier to see the grass, greener on the other side. And I've had some other job offers, but my kids are happy where they are. They like their schools. They have their friends. My wife has a good job. So it's, it's a good spot for us. And I think you just have to kind of find your place. And maybe it's just easier because I'm a little bit older. I think a lot of coaches move around some because they start right out of college. So I started a little bit later, so maybe that has a little bit to do with it. But yeah, no, there is a lot of turnover, and I am seeing a lot of coaches kind of getting out of golf now because of how it's changed, and how, like we talked about earlier, it seems like it's kind of all about the money, and some of the things that you have to offer, like culture and development, they might not carry as much weight as they used to. So yeah, it's definitely changing, and it's difficult, but I don't know. I'm just kind of trying to figure it out day by day, and try to keep getting a little bit better, and take care of the kids that I have and love the ones I'm with, and see how good we can get.
Final question for you. If you had advice for other coaches, maybe those interested in becoming a coach, those going into the profession, maybe early on in the profession, what would you like to share that you've learned over the past number of years?
Yeah, I think it just takes sacrifice. I think sometimes people want that top job right away, and I think you have to be willing to pay your dues. Right when I started working and kind of stopped traveling and playing professionally, the first month I worked for free just to where I could get started into my PGA books and just have something to where it was more of a long-term play. I think a lot of the younger coaches that I see, they want that head job right away. They want to be in a certain conference right away. And I think it's just, you just have to keep learning, and you have to keep improving. And I think if you do that, when opportunities come your way, you'll be ready for them. Because like you said earlier, I never thought that I was going to be a women's golf coach, but I just kept learning about golf and getting experience and meeting people. And then you just never know what door is going to open for you. And I think if you're ready, then you'll be ready for that opportunity. But you have to keep improving, keep learning, and I think it's not all about the return on investment. It's just kind of keep improving yourself, and whether that's another degree, a post-grad degree, whatever it is, it's I went and did every certification you could think of, whether it was from TPI to, getting certified with club fitting. I mean, I did all of it, trying to just learn as much as I could. And you never know who you're going to meet in those different situations. And I think a lot of times too, that's a big part of what's helped me is just trying to meet as many coaches. Like I said, I didn't know very many on the women's side, but just trying to really spend the time at the tournaments, really trying to get to know them and going to the conventions and trying to go out to dinner. And so you constantly have to kind of keep ingesting it, and you just never know when something's going to click and you're going to have that big break. But it might take a few years, but I think you just have to be patient and be disciplined with it, and everything will work out.
Yeah. A couple things resonated in there for me. One was you said this earlier, the grass isn't always greener. Sometimes it's contentment is a big part of the job. And while you may get other opportunities, you may become less content because of all the responsibilities that come with those opportunities. And the second one was in relation to what you were just talking about, in the sense that when we are in a position of, dare I say, importance, in a position of authority, in a position where we're the coach, it comes with a lot of responsibilities, and we're always being looked up to. We're always being, dare I say, judged. I don't think you use that word, but we're being judged. And without having that support system around you that you have in your environment, because you've been there a while, I think gives you a little bit more stability than a lot of people who may be job hopping and going into environments for 2-3 years and trying to find the next thing. And because of that, they really don't settle. They don't settle down, and they don't develop those deep relationships. I was thinking about, while you were talking about going and having dinner with somebody, or going and doing the training and meeting people, the introvert in me was screaming no. Just, that's not something I enjoy doing. I am definitely an introvert, but at the same time, I know the value of forcing myself to do those things. And so for all those introverts out there like me, what Adam said is so true. Even if it makes you uncomfortable, you never know who you might sit down with or have a conversation with at a random training or conference that might lead to something much, much bigger, simply because you had the guts to say, "Hi, my name's Tim. Who are you? What are you doing here?" So as a reminder for me, because I'm the guy who would rather just sit in the corner and not speak to anybody. So, Adam, thank you so much for joining me. If somebody has a question for you, watching, listening at a later point, can they email you?
Yeah. It's adam.gary@wku.edu, or you can find me on Instagram too, or just direct message me on there. It's WKU Coach Gary on Instagram. I'll be able to see that as well. But yeah, and I'm part of the mentorship with the Women's Golf Association. So I think it's important to kind of help out those younger ones. And like you said, you are in a role of responsibility, and I think that's part of it. I know I really appreciate the coaches that helped me get started, and when I was trying to put a schedule together, made room for me and let us come and play. Kevin Williams over at East Carolina was great to me. So yeah, that meant a lot to me at that time. And so, like you said, I think you have to be there for each other, because, I think with the mental health things of the athletes and things now, people kind of just figure the coach has it all together, but you're not going to make everyone happy, and you're going to have players that are upset with you. And sometimes it's just nice to have another coach to talk through a situation, talk through how to handle it, what to do. And I promise you, probably the other coaches have been through the exact same thing. So, but yeah, if anybody has any questions, or if I can help in any way, I'd be more than happy to help out on the journey and trying to figure it all out.
Well, thanks again. And that's a wrap for us. Just a reminder, everybody, to like, subscribe, follow wherever you're watching. We try to do these once every few weeks. So until then, on behalf of myself, Tim Baghurst, and Adam Gary, thanks so much for watching.